Have you ever wanted something you weren't supposed to touch, not because it was forbidden, but because it was someone else's idea of untouchable? That's how it started. With a glance too long, a joke too easy, a silence too charged. Nathan wasn't mine to want. Hell, he wasn't even gay. But there was something about the way he moved through our apartment, barefoot and careless, that made it harder to look away. I was supposed to be happy. Lucas loved me, really loved me, in a way that was rare and steady and safe. We'd built a life together in that little Brooklyn walk-up with crooked tiles and late-night takeout routines. But desire doesn't ask for permission. It creeps in like a draft under the door, quiet, persistent, uninvited. And one night, it didn't creep. It kicked the door open. And everything after that was a lie I couldn't unsay. My name's Evan, and I used to think I understood what stability meant. Lucas and I had been together for 2 years when Nathan moved in. 2 solid years of shared Spotify playlists, Sunday brunches, and whispered arguments over which way the toilet paper should hang. We met at a poetry reading in Fort Greene. Lucas had read something aching and beautiful about his first boyfriend, and I had smiled at him like he was already mine. A week later, he was. Our apartment sat on the top floor of a worn-out brownstone, its charm held together by chipped paint and a balcony with just enough space for 2 chairs and a dying succulent. In the evenings, we'd drink boxed wine out there, wrapped in a thrift store blanket, watching the sunset drip over the skyline. Lucas was the kind of partner people hoped for, grounded, affectionate, deliberate. He worked in publishing, made pancakes from scratch, and always texted to say goodnight if he was working late. We had a rhythm, a quiet sort of harmony that felt like home. Then Nathan came. He was an old friend from college, a communications major with a cigarette grin and a reputation for breaking hearts, mostly women's. He'd just gotten out of a long, toxic relationship and needed a place to land. Lucas was hesitant. "He's straight," he'd said, not even looking up from his laptop when I first brought it up. I'd shrugged. "He's also broke and homeless. We've got a spare room." Nathan moved in the following weekend, trailing boxes and sarcasm, tossing his duffel on the floor like it owed him money. He had this effortless confidence, the kind that made even silence feel like a performance. The first night, we stayed up late, just the 2 of us, drinking cheap beer and talking about old college memories, laughing until my stomach hurt. Lucas had already gone to bed. I told myself it was just nostalgia, that warmth you feel when someone from the past slips back into your present. But there was something in the way Nathan looked at me, open, unfiltered, that started to linger in places it shouldn't have. Still, Lucas and I were good. On paper, we were great. We were planning a trip to Portugal. Talking about maybe adopting a dog. The kind of couple that looked perfect in Instagram stories, all brunch plates and forehead kisses. But something had started to shift. Little things. A kiss that felt too quick. A text left on read. Moments where I looked at Lucas and felt distant. Like I was watching a version of myself go through the motions while my real self stood outside the glass, pressing my fingers to the surface, trying to remember what it felt like to belong. That was before the first touch. Before the first lie. Before I found myself wanting something that could tear it all apart. It started with a look. That's how most things begin, smaller than they should be. Nathan had just gotten out of the shower, towel slung around his waist, water still glistening on his chest. I was passing the bathroom to grab a book from my room when we nearly collided. He laughed, apologetic, hand brushing against my shoulder. "Whoa," he said, half smirk, half apology. "Didn't mean to flash you." I mumbled something about not being fazed, roommates, right? Happens. But later, when I curled into bed next to Lucas, I realized I could still feel the heat of that accidental touch. And I hated myself for it. The next few weeks became a blur of blurred lines. Lucas had grown quieter, buried in manuscript deadlines and longer hours at the office. "Just a busy season," he'd say when I asked if everything was okay. But there was a pause now in our conversations, a hesitation. We still kissed goodnight, still held hands under the table at dinner, but something essential had gone missing, like the soft middle of a fruit that looked perfect on the outside. "Are we okay?" I asked one night while we brushed our teeth side by side. Lucas glanced at me through the mirror. "Why wouldn't we be?" I wanted to say asterisk because I feel like I'm drifting asterisk, or asterisk because I don't know if you're still looking at me the same way. Asterisk, but instead, I spit, rinsed, and said, "Just feels like we haven't really talked." "We talk all the time." He kissed me on the forehead, already walking out of the bathroom. "You overthink too much." Maybe he was right. Maybe I was looking for tension where there was only routine. Except Nathan kept finding ways into my head. We started hanging out more, casual things. Cooking dinner when Lucas worked late. Watching bad reality shows with our knees almost, just almost, touching on the couch. I told myself it was harmless. I had nothing to hide. Then one night, Nathan caught me staring. We were mid-episode of *Love is Blind*, and he turned to me slowly, a small smile pulling at his mouth. "What?" I asked, heart doing something nervous behind my ribs. "You look at me like you're trying not to look at me," he said. I didn't answer. We sat there in the thick silence of it until he got up and said, too softly, "Don't worry. I won't make it weird." But it was weird. I started dreaming about him. Vivid, stupid dreams that left me aching with guilt when I woke up next to Lucas's steady breathing. The guilt only got worse when Lucas started noticing. "Are you and Nathan close now?" he asked one morning, sipping his coffee like it was just a casual question. I nodded. "We hang out sometimes. He's easy to talk to." Lucas didn't say anything for a while. Then, his, intense. "Just be careful, okay?" "Careful?" I laughed, trying to make light. "He's straight." "Yeah," Lucas said. "Straight guys don't look at you the way he does." My stomach dropped. He had noticed. After that, Lucas grew more distant. Not angry, just absent. Like a dimming light. He stopped texting as much. Stopped initiating touch. When we went out to dinner for our anniversary, he gave me a sweater I'd mentioned once in passing. It was thoughtful. But when I leaned in to kiss him, it felt like he was somewhere else. I told myself we were just in a rut. That every couple hits a rough patch. But at night, when Lucas turned his back to me in bed, and I lay there staring at the ceiling, all I could think about was how Nathan's laugh had started to sound like a promise I hadn't asked for. And how badly I wanted to know what would happen if I stopped pretending I didn't feel it, too. The tension wasn't just rising, it was settling into me like a second skin. And I knew, deep down, something was going to give. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of grey, heavy-skied day that made the world feel slow and sticky. Lucas had gone to visit his sister in Queens, some family brunch I'd begged out of by claiming I needed to catch up on work. The truth. I wanted the apartment to myself. Or maybe I just didn't want to spend another day pretending I wasn't already somewhere else inside my own head. Nathan came home from the gym just before noon. Tank top clinging to him, headphones around his neck, hair tousled in that careless way he never had to try for. He dropped his bag by the door and gave me a crooked smile. "Alone today?" he asked. I nodded. "Lucas is out." And then, like gravity had shifted, he walked over and sat beside me on the couch, closer than necessary. "You ever think about that night?" he asked quietly. I didn't answer right away. Just stared at the muted TV screen, watching figures move in silence. "All the time," I finally said. He nodded, eyes still on me. "I didn't mean to make things complicated." "You didn't," I lied. He reached for my hand, just gently, like testing if I'd pull away. I didn't. His fingers grazed mine, and the warmth of it shot straight through me. And then it happened. He kissed me. It wasn't desperate or rushed. It was slow. Familiar. Like we'd been building to this since the day he moved in. I didn't stop it. We moved together like people who knew better but didn't care. Shirts half off, hands roaming, breath catching. We didn't make it to the bedroom. The front door opened just as Nathan's hand was at the waistband of my jeans. I froze. Nathan did too. Lucas stood in the doorway, holding a paper bag, takeout, I think. He didn't speak. His eyes flicked from Nathan's hand to my face and then back again. No yelling. No accusations. Just silence that hit like a brick to the chest. I scrambled to my feet, guilt crashing into me all at once. "Lucas," I started. He dropped the bag on the floor. Pad thai spilling onto the hardwood. "I came back early," he said, voice hollow. "Wanted to surprise you." Nathan stood, awkward, guilty, silent. Lucas looked at him, then at me. "So this is why you've been distant. Why you've been lying." "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," I said, because it was the only truth I had left. "But it did," he replied. "You let it." He looked so calm. Too calm. Like the kind of quiet that comes right before a storm. "I kept wondering if I was just imagining it," he said, eyes still fixed on me. The way you looked at him. The way he looked at you. Lucas. He shook his head. You could have just told me. That would have hurt less than this. And then he turned and walked out. No slammed door. No final words. Just the sound of his footsteps fading down the hall. And the realization that I had broken something I might never be able to put back together. Lucas didn't come back that night. Or the next. A week later, he returned with his brother and quietly packed up his things. He didn't say much. Just nodded when I offered to help, then declined. He left the keys on the counter, the same way he had left the flowers once, softly, with the kind of finality that doesn't ask for permission. Nathan and I barely spoke after that. Whatever was between us had burned fast and ugly, and all that remained was ash and awkwardness. He moved out 2 weeks later, muttering something about needing a new start. I didn't argue. After they were both gone, the apartment felt hollow. The walls echoed too loudly. The couch still had the dent where Lucas used to fall asleep reading, and I found one of his sweaters buried in the laundry. I didn't wash it for weeks. I kept thinking about what Lucas said, that I could have told him. That the truth, even raw and messy, would have hurt less than betrayal. He was right. It took time, months of quiet reflection, therapy, and too many long walks through Prospect Park, to really understand what I'd done. Not just the cheating, but the running. The hiding. The way I let myself drift away from something good, something whole, because I didn't know how to sit with discomfort. I learned that desire can be a trickster. That attraction isn't always love. And that sometimes, the worst pain we cause isn't in the act, but in the silence before it. I reached out to Lucas once. A letter. I didn't ask for forgiveness. Just told him I was sorry, and that I hoped he was happy. He never replied. And that's okay. Now, I live alone. Still in Brooklyn, still figuring it out. I haven't dated much. Some nights are lonelier than others. But I'm learning. Learning that love isn't always enough, but honesty might be. And I wonder, sometimes, if I'd chosen truth over fear, would he still be here beside me? Or was I always meant to learn the hard way what it costs to lie to someone who loved me enough to stay?